Astrology isn't just about signs and symbols. It's a tool for navigating real life. Hello, and welcome to Astrology with Elisa. I'm your host, Elisa Dixon, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. So I just got back from NORWAC, and my head is still spinning. Not just because of all the astrology, but because of the people, the conversations, the synchronicities, the strange little moments that almost felt orchestrated somehow. And I know we're in Gemini season right now, but this whole trip felt like a living, breathing example of Gemini energy. Connections, conversations, spontaneous encounters, information weaving people together. And it really got me thinking about how the universe works through seemingly tiny choices, like which lecture you decide to attend, where you sit at dinner, whether you walk into the party or head back to your hotel room. Those tiny moments, those tiny decisions don't always feel important at the time, but sometimes they completely change who you meet, what conversation you end up having, or what door opens next. And this trip was full of those moments. And it's funny, I say I just got back because technically NORWAC was almost 2 weeks ago now, but I combined like 3 trips into one. First was NORWAC, then a family vacation in Seattle, and then Lily and I flew to Rochester for Ninja Regionals, where, by the way, she qualified for Worlds. Yay, Lily! So I basically just stopped moving long enough to sit down and process all of it. And despite several long flights to decompress, my brain is still swimming. Not just from all the amazing astrology I learned, but from the energy of the people there. There's just something really magical about putting hundreds of astrologers together in one place, because everyone is there for the same reason: to connect, to learn, to share stories, to understand themselves a little more deeply. And I came to this conference solo, which, if I'm being honest, pushed me a little outside of my comfort zone. Walking into dinners or lectures alone, trying to figure out where to sit, who to talk to. It honestly felt a little like middle school lunch at first. And yet every single time I followed a nudge, or sat somewhere random, or started a conversation, something meaningful happened. And I realized maybe it wasn't as random as I first thought. One of the first really interesting synchronicities happened with my new friend Madeline. And first of all, our birthdays are within a day of each other. And when we started talking more, we realized not only do we share an Aries sun, we also share our Capricorn rising and our Mercury in Pisces. And interestingly, we both were there with almost the exact same side mission. Yes, we were there for astrology and community and lectures, but we both also wanted to experiment with recording spontaneous interviews with other astrologers. And both of us were a little stressed out about the tech side of it. Testing microphones, learning setups, wondering if we knew what we were doing, or if we could really pull this off. And we ended up making plans to meet early the next morning to help each other test everything out. And it immediately put both of us at ease, which honestly feels very Mercury and Pisces to me. Like not just exchanging information, but feeling into it and supporting each other, calming each other's nervous system through connection. And for my part, my goal with these interviews was really simple. I wanted to ask other astrologers, how do you use astrology in real life? What planet causes the most chaos for you personally? And what astrology topic are you most excited to talk about lately? And by the way, I did end up getting several really cool interviews, which I'll be sharing soon over the next few weeks or months. Who knows? For once, I'm not committing myself to a timeline. I'm just going to say they're coming soon. And Madeline's project was also incredibly Gemini coded. She was gathering testimonials for the Honeycomb Almanac, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically this incredible astrology planner that shows not only the daily transits, but also how those transits interact with your personal chart. So it becomes this blend of a planning tool, a reflection tool, and an astrology journal all at once. You can use it to look ahead at upcoming energy, but also to look back afterwards and realize, oh, that's what was happening. And I actually have a really cool story about a moment like that. One night, really late, after a full day of lectures and dinner and multiple conference parties, I was exhausted. And I got to one of those crossroads moments. I was standing in a hallway looking at two options. One direction was another party I'd been invited to. The other direction was the elevator to go back to my room. And I literally stood there for a minute debating with myself, do I keep socializing or do I go to bed? And I finally decided, okay, I'm done. I'm going back upstairs. And I made one of those tiny decisions that in the moment didn't seem important. But then, as I walked through the lobby, I saw Colin Bedell of Queer Cosmos and Sky Barclay of Sky Astrology recording a podcast. And somehow I ended up joining the conversation. They wrapped up their interview and we began this amazing spontaneous discussion about Gemini energy and the sixth house. And it was so good, I pulled out my tech that Madeline had helped me test. The mics, the stand, the app on my phone, and I spontaneously recorded our conversation for this podcast. It was so much fun and unexpected. And later that night, before bed, I checked my honeycomb almanac and I realized that Mercury had literally just moved into my sixth house that day, which happens to be the part of my chart where Gemini lives for me personally. So transiting Mercury in real time, touching the part of the sky that begins my sixth house, the exact themes we just spent hours talking about. So wild. And I just sat there kind of laughing to myself thinking, of course that happened today. And honestly, that entire conversation almost didn't happen if I had made a slightly different choice, made a different decision in the hallway, gone into the other party. I never would have had that experience. And that's the part that fascinates me so much lately, the way life unfolds through these tiny little moments, the way conversations seem to find us at the exact right time, the way people enter our orbit for reasons we don't even understand yet. It's just wild. Another moment like that happened one night at dinner. I walked in alone again, slightly nervous again, and I sat next to this lovely woman named Jean. And once again, her birthday was within a day of mine, which at this point I was like, okay, universe, I see you. And eventually I shared with her that I originally got my podcast start by guesting on the Fun Astrology podcast with Thomas Miller. And she immediately goes, oh my gosh, you know Thomas Miller? And I said, yes. And it turns out she had this really meaningful personal connection with Thomas years ago. They had lost touch, and now they actually live within a couple hours of each other. And because Jean and I randomly sat next to each other at dinner, they're reconnecting. And honestly, after Madeline earlier that weekend, this was now the third time something like this had happened to me. Last year, I met my friend Parisa at another astrology conference, and once again, her birthday was within a day of mine. These are not just fellow Aries people either. All three of these women have their Aries suns within about 1 degree of my Aries sun, which honestly just fascinates me. And you remember Parisa. She became my very first podcast guest. So at this point, I'm kind of laughing at how the universe keeps magnetizing these people into my life. Like, okay, universe, I'm noticing. And again, random? I don't think so. I really don't. I think the universe speaks through people, through conversations, through timing, through little nudges, through moments that don't seem important until later. And honestly, that's part of why I love astrology so much. Not because I think astrology controls everything, because I really don't. I don't believe that at all. But because astrology helps me notice things. It helps me pay attention to patterns, to timing, to energy, to meaning. And Gemini season especially reminds me how powerful connection really is. One conversation can change your perspective. One person can open an entirely new door. One random seat at dinner can reconnect two people who were meant to find each other again. And I think sometimes we underestimate just how much magic exists in ordinary moments. So if there's one thing this trip reminded me, it's this. Say yes to the conversation. Sit at the table. Talk to the stranger. Follow the nudge. Stay 5 minutes longer. Or leave the party and walk through the lobby. You never know what moment is waiting for you. And whatever that moment is, I truly believe it's on time and on purpose, even if you don't understand it immediately. Because honestly, I really do believe the universe is magic. And the coolest part of this whole trip for me was realizing how all these little moments connected together. A few weeks ago, I talked on the podcast about being nervous to reach out to other astrologers to collaborate because my email signature wasn't quite right, which feels kind of funny now. But that tiny step of fixing that led to a little more confidence. Then practicing interviews with Madeline on day 1 of NORWAC built more confidence. And joining the spontaneous conversation with Colin and Sky, even though I was exhausted and awkward and unsure of myself in the moment, this became one of my favorite moments of the entire weekend. And that's what I keep realizing lately. Growth happens through tiny, brave moments, little risks, small, uncomfortable choices. And honestly, this feels really connected to Saturn and Neptune in Aries right now. This new beginning energy, the energy that says, stop waiting until you feel perfectly ready. Just begin. Be bold. Be brave. Take the risk. Because this whole NORWAC trip for me was basically a series of little risks, none of which felt comfortable in the moment, but so many of which turned into something meaningful. So if there's something you've been nervous to do lately, just do it. Send the email. Start the thing. Reach out to the person. Take the chance. If I can do it, you can absolutely do it too. The energy right now really does support you building the life you want, one brave little step at a time. And I cannot wait to hear all the ways that you all are growing and evolving and taking brave little risks in your lives too. Please tell me about them. I genuinely love hearing your stories. Just click on the link in the show notes to record a voicemail or send me a text message. Or you can always reach out via email or on Instagram. And yes, it may not technically be Aries season anymore, but Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries for a long time, helping us turn dreams into reality. So just do it. Okay, so before I go, just a little teaser. Some of those spontaneous conversations I recorded at NORWAC were with astrologers that many of you probably already know and love, including Judith Hill, Adam Ellenboss, Madeline DeCoates, Helena Woods, Jen Zart, Dave Campbell, Devin Rochelle, and of course, Colin Bedell and Sky Barclay. So there's a lot of fun stuff coming. As always, I love and appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Hey, Astro friends, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, follow the show, or leave a review. Let's keep growing this beautiful little community together.